It's going to make it weird.
Okay. Today's topic. That was weird, sorry. What you lose when you gain a spouse from the Atlantic. That's our topic today. Before we get to it, Dave Safransky, President and founder of BJOT Investment Group. Of course, as always, faithfully, Ron Eastwood.
Thank you.
And as usual, Janelle showing up late. She's going to be here any second. Nice of you to join us here for Brian and Janelle.
I had to get my coffee.
There we go. She needs her coffee. Trust me. Yeah, good.
Cafe Americano.
She needs her coffee.
Yes, I do.
So,
Americano.
let me give you the cliff notes of this story, and then we can talk about it, because I think the Bible says something similar. If you look at the article, you'll notice that the tenor of it is more about the idea that, why does everybody like marriage so much in America? Because, hey, you give up a lot. That's not the tone I want to take. I want to take out some of what they've said in here, which is helpful. They say that essentially, as you go through it, marriage is often seen in America as an essential step in a successful life. But at the same time, the Pew Research Center reports that only about half of Americans over age 18 are married. That's down from 72% in 1960. Isn't that wild? That's a huge drop. And when you look at it, they ultimately say that what you give up when you get married is relationship. They say, and what you get is social alienation. That we underestimate, and
What's
that's a
going
harsh
on at
word.
that house?
That's crazy.
Yeah.
It's like
It's
Brian.
harsh. I understand that it's harsh, but the point they make is that according to a study, that marriage actually weakens our social ties. Compared with those who stay single, married folks are less likely to call or visit parents and siblings, and less inclined to offer them emotional support or pragmatic help with such things as chores and transportation. They're also less likely to hang out with friends and neighbors. And friends, this is true.
Friends,
Right?
but not neighbors. I think when you're married, you're fitting into your community, the people on your street and stuff. You're more likely. When I was single, I didn't care who was on my street because I had my group of friends, and we did everything because we were all single, and so we did things. And somebody would get married, and they'd leave the group, and you'd be like, "Oh, we used to hang out with them, but they're not single, so they left us." So it was kind of that. There was relationships, but it was different. And when you're married, I think you have relationships, but you're also very content to just sit at home and watch Netflix with your wife.
Yeah, preach. Unless you're married to Janelle, where Len has to drive her all over the place and do things all the time, right, Janelle?
Walk
No,
places.
but you know what though?
She went to lunch in Columbus the other day. And
Okay,
weekend
no,
in
listen.
Philadelphia.
My sister was in town,
She's
and my
got it.
mother was here too. And so, as a mom, she's like, "You guys got to go see your cousins. If you keep making excuses, you get disconnected from family." So
Yes.
it wasn't high maintenance. It was my mom saying, "You got, even if it's a few hours, you got to make the time to." Why am I doing this? Is like, anyway. So, which brings up the whole thing about relationships.
Do you think it's
being
true?
intentional to stay connected with family?
Well, but hold up, though. Isn't this true? That what
I
comes
think
with
so.
marriage is social alienation.
I think so.
Well, the way Ron described it, you do kind of get alienated from that former friend group.
Much more so than family.
Right, because you're married now. You're not going to go hang out with your buddies all the time. You've got a wife and maybe kids and other responsibilities. So I think as your responsibilities grow, as you get married and you have a responsibility to your spouse, not to your friends. So, I mean, my friends in school were kind of losers anyway. So.
Yeah,
I got
you were in
rescued from
Polish
that friend
boys.
group.
Yeah, you were in a gang.
I was in the Polish boys, and they were kind of going their separate ways, eating pierogies in different places. But I just assumed when I got married that a lot of that life was left behind. You know, I'm not golfing every Saturday morning for 8 hours.
I thought you were, though.
Well, I do now because my wife doesn't care what I do now.
She's sick of you.
She's sick of me.
By the way, good morning, Michelle. And by the way,
Hey, Michelle.
Mike showed up first. Mike Gonzalez surprised us yesterday, stopped by the studio to say hello.
He is
Yeah.
so cool. Yes.
Mike, so fun to meet you in person. I walked out of the studio before when we finished overtime, and he's like, "Brian," I'm like, "Mike,
Oh,
You're
that's
here.
cool.
you're here."
It was a cool surprise.
So we'd love to have you stop by sometime. A bunch of other people in there too. We got Jeffrey trying to get me in trouble. Thanks a lot, Jeffrey. I made a joke about, I don't remember why I said Janelle should comb her hair, but he wants a close-up of your hair.
A close-up, yes. So I come to work and I brush my hair. I put in a lot of time, so I didn't appreciate
Why
it.
did I say that again?
It's
I don't
You
know.
think you were being you?
It's unexplainable, or just by that.
It does look more combed than normal though today.
The normal, wow.
You're just like me. You just get in trouble on whatever you do.
But you know what, though? I think
You're all making excuses. Social alienation, that's a negative.
it's a negative.
You
And
lose closeness with siblings, parents, cousins, and friends when you get married. And let me just say, you two are past this phase of like the kids at home.
Mm-hmm.
Talk to anybody in our phase of life where you're in like late 40s, late 30s. She let me just get away with it. She just let it go. She's older than me. But when you're in our phase of life, like all of us lament, we don't got time
Yeah.
for family, let alone
Now,
friends.
some of this is your own doing because
It
you
is
have
your
like
own
9
doing.
kids, right?
they
So-
kept telling us every pregnancy, what are you doing? Stop.
Yeah.
I actually said to Sarah just yesterday, to borrow Len's words, I think I miscalculated.
You did, yes. Yeah,
But-
a lot of kids. You forget they're going to grow. You think it's going to be a bunch of little ones.
But you guys remember that phase, right?
Yeah.
You're in a phase of life where literally you don't have time forget friends. And that's out of the question. Family.
Right.
I'm talking about siblings, parents. You got no time for that.
And then your friends become the other soccer parents because out of default, you're spending every weekend together.
Mm-hmm.
So
And
you
you
might
wouldn't
as well
get a
become
choice.
friends because you're going to be together for years.
So, what do we have here from a couple people? We've got Tim saying, I did separate from single friends when I got married, but then grew back together after they got married. It's true, yeah, I think that happens, but it's never the same again. Like, there's a cost to marriage, isn't there? And that cost is that those close relationships you had with, and the Bible even says it, that when you get married, you leave your father and mother. You don't just gently move into different areas. No, you leave.
Wait, hold
It
up.
changes.
It's not.
Here we go.
You're making it very extreme. Okay, maybe I'm more on the fence. When we first got married, I thought, when you're in those first few years, you're like bonding, and all you want to do is me. It was me complaining, Len, you're not spending time with me, and we're not dating enough. All of that. I'm saying we are at a
I
point.
remember this very well.
No, but eventually I realized that one of the things that women do that we shouldn't is that
Whoa,
we.
whoa, whoa, pause. Say that
I knew you.
again. I just want to
like
make sure
that.
everybody heard what you just said. That what now?
One of the things that women do that we shouldn't is win.
We don't even know what it is.
I like it already.
We won. We
I
won.
like it.
Is that we put a lot of expectations on our husbands. You can hit the bell again. And part of it is we expect from our husbands things that you can get from your girls, right? And so I've learned to make time for my friends. I'll get to family in a little bit. Make time for my friends, and it kind of released the pressure a little bit from Len. That's number one. Number two, on Len's side, even the pressure of you're not dating me enough, we're not spending enough time. I realize if I allow him to spend more time with his friends and less with me, like even if it's just go kick it with your boys every other Friday, it makes him a better husband. We have to allow ourselves to invest in other friendships. Seriously, you're almost laughing. I am so
No,
serious.
I'm laughing about hanging out with Len. We finally hung out after a couple of years of knowing each other.
Yes.
And you gotta let that guy get out more.
Why?
Remember I told you about his joke?
Yeah.
The waitress, I gotta tell you this. To advocate for what you're saying, Janelle, you gotta get out more. And you realize it in hindsight when you're telling jokes that are way out of date. The waitress
You're
comes
gonna
to the table to how do you want your burger done? And Len looks at her and goes, do you have any Grey Poupon? And she was
She's
so
like a
young.
millennial.
Yeah.
She is so young. She didn't know what he's talking about. She's like, what? And I'm like, dude, that was funny 20 years ago.
Right.
You gotta let that man get out
I
more.
do. No, but yes, we are better people, better spouses if we are intentional about spending time with our friends, number one. And then the other thing is maybe the first few years, again, as you're growing your relationship, it's cool about the family part, but moving forward, your siblings are having kids too. The cousins need to get together. I mean,
It's
like,
true.
Yeah.
that's not an excuse. You don't have to isolate yourself from your parents. I mean, from your family. And you can be intentional. And my family has figured it out. It maybe looks different.
My family's 2 days drive away. I see my brother twice a year.
But you guys actually schedule a time to get together.
Yeah.
If you imagine if you didn't do that, 3 years could easily go by for all of you where you don't see each other, especially siblings.
Joe said, ring that bell again, Brian.
Wow.
I don't know
think-
why I did, but I...
Wives should let their husbands golf more.
Golf.
They really should. Golf.
Why
is a
got, wait,
great
does it
sport.
involve spending money?
Golf wouldn't be good for me.
Why not?
I'm not good at it, so
Yeah.
I just get more frustrated.
Just give me time in the garage, right? Or in your wood shop.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, that'd be fine.
So now, what's interesting too is that the Bible even talks about this in a different relationship. This article talks about giving up friends, family, as part of being in a marriage. 1 Corinthians 7:32. I want you to be free from the concerns of this life. An unmarried man can spend his time doing the Lord's work and thinking how to please him, but a married man has to think about his earthly responsibilities and how to please his wife. His interests are divided in the same way, and then he says the same thing for women. Don't worry, women, you're not, you're not off the hook in this either. He talks about that there's a cost to marriage spiritually, that it gets in the way of your
yeah.
relationship with the Lord.
Wow.
yeah, it can get in the way of a lot of, like, you feel moved to maybe give money to a cause or to go help a person do something, but your wife might not agree with that, and you shouldn't follow your leading in spite of her leading. You have to work that out, and if in doubt, I say don't do it rather than cross your wife and have an unhappy life.
But the
Don't
Bible
listen to our
talks a lot
podcast on
about
that, then we
marriage,
don't-
Brian. A lot about marriage and how great the relationship is and how godly the representation of marriage is. So there's Paul is saying in one spot, if you're going to serve the Lord and be totally dedicated to it, then you might want to think about not getting married. And he never got married, so he was able to walk out this advice that he was giving. But
he's saying there's a cost.
There is a cost. I've seen the extreme where women, because I'm a woman, so I'll just speak
Wait-
for
wait a
women.
minute.
Y'all could speak for
Is
yourselves.
this another thing women can change?
And it's not all women.
Wait, no. Is this
It's
something?
not all women.
But some women can change this?
Some women can change it. Yes. I have seen where we put ministry ahead of our family and husbands. And we feel like our commitment to certain ministries is so deep and it's so holy. And it gets in between, like I've seen it get in between husband and wife. So I'm saying that's the extreme. So I can see how if you're doing it the way you're supposed to do it, you won't minister as much as you want to, or maybe your ministry won't grow. Like you got to kind of take it slow because of the time commitment and keep
Can I
that
give
in
you
mind.
another
Or maybe your quiet time with the Lord, you got to be willing to put it down sometimes to spend time. I don't know. What?
Another
Go.
one that men generally don't struggle with as much as women.
What?
They put the kids first, not their husband.
yes,
No, wait, but that's not God.
Well, still, I'm talking about relationship and cost.
Yes.
Even in a relationship, you got kids, that becomes a cost because your wife forgets about you most of the time.
Yeah.
I'm not going to say my wife ever did that, Brian. I don't know if she's watching.
And this is
Lavon, you
recorded.
But so, okay, we've actually painted a pretty bleak picture now of marriage. This article is saying that when you get married, you get social isolation. You lose connection and friendship and connection with family, and you lose in your dedication to the Lord. You lose some of your spiritual connection to the Lord. So then the next question has to be, in light of all that, is it worth it?
But Brian, you've married your best friend, and we're always going to be in love like this, and it's always going to be great and
All
wonderful.
your
and-
needs will be taken care of.
Yeah,
Before
it's
we
not going to be like that.
Before we answer that, Josh says, I am just delighted that I now know what you two look like now. I've been listening for a very long time. First time seeing you both, and I can't get
Come on
over it.
Come on over here.
Oh, wow.
We stopped the whole
It's
wow.
a
It's
Close up.
overwhelming, isn't it?
Isn't it?
You didn't think it could be...
I'm the more attractive one.
You went there, didn't you?
I had
It's true.
to.
It's true.
You said I don't comb my
I
hair.
got a better beard than you. How about that?
Linda
You
y
do.
guapo.
You do.
No, you didn't think it would be this good. That's what it was. Like
That's
you're
like
listening and you're
overtime.
like,
You gotta get overtime.
wow, they look good. And then you watch and you're like, wow, they
Wow.
look good.
Does he look as tall as he sounds?
I don't. People say that. All
So-
right, we digress.
Dave was talking about, is it worth it? Is it worth all the loss? All the loss.
Because it's hard and you give up a lot. There's friendships I long to rekindle.
So there are some things you lose, and there's a lot of things that you gain.
Yeah.
It's called the Ben Franklin. You make a list of. It's like when people say, "Well,
Well,
I'm
you
going to go buy a
gotta
house."
tell us what the Ben Franklin is
Yeah,
first.
so
The Ben Franklin
A penny
is
saved is a penny earned.
No.
Don't put a key on a kite. And
The kite, yeah.
The Ben Franklin is a list that you compile where you add up the pluses and the minuses. So you say, well, if I get married, I'm not going to be able to hang out with Ron as much, minus, but I get to hang out with this girl who looks a lot better in shorts than Ron does, plus, right? So
Plus,
far I'm
plus.
plus. And you go down that list, and I think what you'll find is that, yes, there are things that are going to change about your life, but the things that it brings into your life probably outweigh those things. Your friends are going to go get married anyway, most likely. I mean, I had one friend that we were pretty sure was never going to get married. How he found a spouse, I'll never know. But he did, and they're happy. So, see, anybody could do it, Brian.
Right.
Yeah.
I'm talking about Brian. No, I wasn't talking about Brian. But, so there are things that you give up, absolutely. With any choice that we make, especially big choices in life, there's things that there's a cost.
Yeah.
To anything that we do, there's a cost. But if the benefit far outweighs that cost, and it's certainly worth doing.
By the way, Deborah said, Brian's a great radio voice, thank you. Didn't think he was a beanpole, ha 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 ha. Deborah, I'm just not flexing. I'd rather not rip this shirt on live on the
that's
internet.
what it is. Mike says, so in those transitions, becoming married or becoming single, we should make an effort to continue those friendships, getting together or communicating.
But here's the cynic in me. Go ahead, make an effort. It's still not going to ever be the same. You're still losing
It's
something.
not going to be the same. I mean, there's seasons
But you
to life.
lose. At the end of the day, you lose.
I think, and again, based on what I've learned through my mistakes and selfishness.
Whoa, whoa, whoa.
Yeah.
Say that again.
What I've learned through my mistakes and selfishness is that what makes the
I'm
difference.
sorry.
It's cool. This makes dealing with Len super easy because I'm like, oh my gosh, I went through Brian. So it's good.
Training.
Don't you feel bad for Sarah? Poor Sarah. Oh, boy. I'm sorry, go ahead.
As a
So
collective, we do.
Yeah.
the difference is a loving spouse. Like if we love our spouse, and we're mindful of this, we try to make the loss as minimal as possible. So maybe encouraging, because sometimes you don't think why are you about to laugh?
I'm watching myself ding the bell.
Sometimes the loss is maybe the pressure, feeling like, oh, I have to spend time with him, or I have to. And maybe if we release each other and say, go spend Saturday with your mom, go, garden with your mom, or hey, have you called your siblings? You don't think? Or maybe giving the permission.
I don't really want to do that.
Yeah.
You're missing my point. What I'm saying
No, I know
is
what you're
encouraging
saying.
each other to nurture those relationships.
But then here's the thing. Here's the other part I think you have to be honest about. When you're Len, do you want to garden with your mom or do you want to hang out with Janelle?
Seriously?
You want to hang out with Janelle. When you're Len, I mean, if I'm being honest, all things being equal, I'd rather hang out with Sarah.
No, not all.
But you make a point to get together with other family members or other friends if you had any.
Sure. And you have to allow space for it.
If you had any.
There's a part of Len that comes out, and a part of me that comes out when I'm around my siblings. And
Yeah.
Len, who's the more selfless one, he has made it a point when my brother lived close to town, he would make it a point for us to get together for Sunday dinner because he was like,
Okay.
man, there's just something in you that comes out when your brother's around. So that's what I'm saying. When you love selflessly, you recognize that. And even if like the first thing in your mind is I want to be with you, you would recognize like, no, Sarah, you love your mom. Like just spend time. You don't think like we can
No, we do.
remind each other of
Last
that.
night, Sarah let me hang out with a friend who was in town.
Right.
And we went out to dinner and had a great time. So, yeah, it's a thing you can do. But what's funny, I hadn't seen the guy in 4 years. And I probably won't see him for
Yeah.
another at least 4. Just because of where he lives and the way life works. And we had a great time. We laughed about the old days and had fun.
Yeah.
And I guess my answer is, yeah, it's worth it.
Yeah.
I think marriage is a wonderful thing, and there's a lot of cost to it. There's a cost to everything.
There is a cost.
And you're right, there is a way to maintain those connections, just like in spite of Paul's warnings, there is a way to stay close to the Lord, even though you'll never be as close as you were before you were married. I don't think you can, because, like you said, your interests are divided
Right.
when you're married, and it's true that they are, and he knows that. There's still a way to do it and maintain some new level of relationship. But part of it's accepting that it will never be the same, and accepting that it's new and different.
And this is the other reminder too. Mike says we expect our spouses to meet all our needs. Len is right. We need to make expectations in line with reality. And that's the thing. In encouraging Sarah, it's reminding her, there are needs you have that I just can't meet. Go spend time with your friends, or go nurture your relationships with your family. You know, because you want her to be whole, and we lose out when it's just like.
But see, you know where you run into this even more, and I don't know how many people can relate to this, but when you're born and raised in the same place that your family's lived for generations, it's a piece of cake.
Mm-hmm.
When you move across the country, you're separated from everyone you've ever known
Yeah.
by time. And
Yeah,
I
that's
don't
true.
care about Facebook and
That's
FaceTime.
true.
You can't maintain a friendship staring at each other on a screen. You just can't do it.
That's true.
And so it becomes a different type of isolation when you're
Yeah.
living in a community that you don't know anyone,
Yeah.
and they've all got their people
That's true.
that they've been maintaining for years.
How did you navigate your relationships with family members, for example, after marriage?
I know
Morning.
something's coming.
Were you intentional?
Well, no. My family siblings were not as tight as some other families. Like I have a cousins that they're always together, always together. My brother moved to Florida. My sister moved a little far away from us. I moved out west, and so it was a little bit different. Now I seem to talk to my siblings more now than ever. In fact, I was talking to my sister as I pulled into the radio station today. So.
Aw, that's
Why now
cool.
more than ever?
I don't, I think because my parents are getting older, and we're dealing with some things with parents and things of that nature. So I just think it seems to be happening more now than ever, and I welcome it because I love my sisters. And,
Yeah.
I do owe my one sister because I chopped her pinky off when we were kids.
That's right.
Total accident.
You owe her.
For the most part. Total accident.
She didn't need that tip on that finger. She didn't need that.
Do you need 10? I mean, you got 10 in case you lose one or two, right?
Right, yeah.
So she seems to have forgiven me for that, though. It happened when she was 2 or 3.
She's all right.
Aw.
She's fine.
She seems like she's doing fine.
Yeah. So I just think as you get older, there are things that kind of draw you back to family.
So then are you and Ron giving folks in our life position, and or even Kelly's over there, giving us hope that there is a season where it's acutely difficult to maintain relationships and family and such, but over time it gets better and it gets easier?
It does, but I think as you guys were talking, I was thinking about the church family that you build, and it's one of the reasons why I really encourage people to get involved in men's groups and women's groups at church, because you are isolated in a way. You're kind of like on this little family island.
Yeah.
And I used to tell my wife, I look at this like this is our own little corporation or our own little fiefdom here, and my job is to stand at the guard towers and make sure the wolves don't get in, right? And I'm
You're such a romantic.
but I really look at it. My
know
job
what
is
you
to
mean.
guard this family, and her job was more to nurture the family because I'm just not a nurturer. I mean, it's just not my nature, right? I was hard to believe, right? Exactly. And so that church family, those men in your church group. In fact, somebody I know is going through a bad situation right now. And I know if her husband had been involved with my men's group, we would have said, bro, what are you doing?
Yeah.
Because you need those guys in your life. Your family might not always do that for you. Friends might not, friends tend to commiserate with you. Oh yeah, I know you got it bad at home. And what they really should be saying is, you're being a moron.
Yeah.
And that's, the church family really steps up at that time. That's who takes the place of the friends who commiserate with you. People who will tell you the truth, even when you don't want to hear the truth. It's hard to hear that. And so we need those church families, especially where you guys are at, with kids, relationships, and busyness and work. This is where you need that the most, is right now.
Yeah, that's true. And which is why Scripture is very clear in Hebrews that you don't forsake the assembling of believers. It's one where I thought for many years church was either like you go for great preaching, or you go for great music, or you go for both. Like you gotta find, no. That's a two-legged stool, it doesn't work.
Mm-hmm.
Equally as important is the way that the Lord designed us for community with other people. And I think that you're right, that is a way for us to lessen the costs of marriage and relationship, right? To lessen the cost if you have that deliberate thing there. Oh, look it's time for us to stop.
Oh, there you go.
Oh, guys.
We could go on forever.
Well, the conversation does go on forever on Facebook now, and we look back and love to get your insights on this topic. And there's Follow Up Friday, so we're going to be revisiting all our topics and maybe new ones that you have. But for now,
Well, and in honor of the person who was excited to see us for the first time, we can just finish on a high note. Come on over here.
I know.
Say hi.
See you later.
Bye.